something happening here. It's now or never. 'Cause there's something happening here.
Hello and welcome back, everybody. I am Colin from Artemis.
Hi, I'm Dr. June.
Welcome back and thank you for returning. Last episode, we were talking about international versus domestic hemp. Today, we'll be discussing Nano CBD. And this is actually a very fascinating topic that I would love to discuss. We have a lot of clients and customers, I'd say, that come in to our shop and are looking for Nano CBD products. And we have a lot of Nano CBD based brands that come into the shop, trying to get us to basically sell their Nano CBD products. Now, I know close to nothing about Nano CBD, so that's why we have Dr. Chin here to discuss these topics also too. So if you could, Dr. Chin, just kind of describe what nano kind of products are and why it matters that it's in my CBD products.
That's great. The term nano CBD has been everywhere. I mean, there's nano CBD mascara, nano CBD masks, nano CBD water. So I think nano is a term that is thrown out everywhere. And, you have to be careful of the vendors because you're not really sure if there even is a nanotechnology behind their production process, or are they just throwing around the term nano for marketing purposes? So nanotechnology dates back to the 1950s. There was a physicist that wanted to develop machines to make smaller copies of other molecular objects. And if you look at phytocannabinoids, which is the cannabis plant, those molecules measure about 2,000 nanometers.
Okay.
But for you and me, our human cells, we can only absorb particles between 60 to 80 nanometers, right? So you think of 2,000 versus what we can absorb, 60 to 80 nanometers. Another way of thinking it is when you were a kid and you jump into those big balls, you ever go to like a
ball
pool
pits,
of
yeah.
ball pit? Okay, so those big ball pits are like the phytocannabinoids. And what nanotechnology does is tries to make those big ball pits into smaller, more absorbable molecules.
Okay.
So nanotechnology is a process of emulsifying or breaking down this CBD oil so that we can absorb it better. Because CBD oil is fat soluble, and we're mostly made up of water. Our mucous membranes are, our mouth, our GI tract is watery mucus. And so the oil and water don't mix. And for you as a chef, you understand salad dressing, right?
Yes, a lot of emulsification.
So tell me a little bit about emulsification of food.
So for food, it's what we or from a chef standpoint, just the blending of two oils, right? And obviously, two oils are meant to blend, so we can blend the two oils from emulsifiers. And for cooking, that's either egg yolk usually or mustard. That's why we get Caesar dressing the way it is, and a lot of salad dressings the way it is. Also, when you eat your hollandaise, that is a emulsification process too. So it's in cooking all the time. It's part of a lot of bases of our sauces too.
I'm glad you brought that up because as an undergraduate, I was a nutrition major, and I had to take all these food classes.
Okay.
And the food classes, I thought, I'm going to just try all these food and taste test cheeses. But we were learning the biochemistry of food.
Yes.
And I was like, this is actually not as fun as I thought. Learning about the chemical processes of blending flour and water.
Yeah. Especially as you get into these higher restaurants with the higher Michelin stars, they love to deconstruct traditional dishes. So that's when you see a lot of that biochemistry coming in. It's insane what they do basically nowadays.
So I have a whole new respect for chefs because you guys are essentially chemists. So basically with nano CBD, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to emulsify or break down that CBD, that oil, that fat soluble molecule into something that's more digestible, or in the case of CBD water, if you think you've seen CBD water, putting a fat soluble molecule into water and making it not separate. Like how do we do that?
Exactly. And that's what all the products that we see come in, they're water soluble. And from what I have read and what I've understood, I always thought cannabinoids need fats and lipids to bind to because they're lipophilic. But now they're coming in with the nanotechnology saying, hey, it's actually water soluble and this is more beneficial for you. So is the absorption better of these products that we're using, or would you say that the oil-based method is still more traditional in these products?
So basically, when they're having like a nano amplified CBD or nano CBD, like in your
Hmm.
example, the water, they're using a proprietary process to make it like 100 times smaller, so that it becomes water soluble and more bioavailable. Um, in general, if you're just looking at CBD as an oil, that's why we talked about with Wendy in one of the episodes the different delivery methods
Yes.
and why one would be more bioavailable than the other. So when you're vaping or smoking, you have about 90% bioavailability because it goes straightly into your lungs. You have the lung perfusion and then it gets absorbed. But then if you're looking at an oil-based tincture or an edible,
Yep.
not all of that gets absorbed because they're big particles and also because it gets metabolized through your liver and your stomach, your GI tract, your digestive system, and you might lose a lot of that. So that's why a lot of the companies are trying to use nanotechnology so that their product becomes more bioavailable or absorbed in our own body.
Is it worth then buying these products? In the end, like I always thought that I would want more of a fat-based product in all of my basically cannabinoid products, whether that be the CBD or from the hemp or the cannabis plant. It just fascinated me. They really love this, and for instance, they even said a topical application, I would have 100% absorption rate into my skin. We had one brand coming in and telling us, and from what I've read, topicals they never even enter or penetrate our bloodstream except through a transdermal application. So when we say 100% enters, I was thinking, is that even possible to have a product that does a topical application
This
for
is
100?
why I love Artemis
Yeah.
because you're asking these great
Yeah.
questions. These vendors come in and try to sell you something, and you're like, wait a minute, can you explain that again?
Yeah, because I mean that sent red flags up for me, and I was like, okay, you're trying to sell me something that I know doesn't sound right to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, well, so when you're dealing with a fat soluble molecule and you're looking for something that is a full plant extract, you don't want to alter it too much, right? So when you're introducing nanotechnology, you're creating a chemical reaction,
Hmm.
right? You're basically kind of like either attaching something to the molecule of the CBD to make it smaller and easily absorbable. So some patients prefer having the unadulterated, unprocessed version, and their body does better in that. But if you're looking at, let's say, skincare or a water product, you just can't have that separation. If you look at a water bottle and all of a sudden you see there's like a thin layer on top that's
Yeah,
fat, I'm not going to drink that, right?
exactly. Yeah,
So it's aesthetics as well. And then if you're looking at skin, think about our skin. It's the largest organ, but it's the epidermal layer is so thick.
yeah.
It's so thick. It's really hard to create a product that will penetrate. And let's say really high-end skincare, like serums.
Yep.
When you use high-end serums on your face, those serums have gone through a sort of a technology, nanotechnology, liposomal technology, so it gets absorbed better through the epidermis, and it can moisturize better. If you look at, let's say, Johnson & Johnson baby oil, and you slather that on your skin, it really never gets absorbed, and you just see it on the surface of your skin. It's a really greasy and opaque layer on your skin. So the same thing with these CBD topicals. What they're trying to do is create a more absorbable cream or ointment so that it can penetrate into the deep muscular tissue and relieve some of the pain, aches and pains that you're going through. But the problem is there's only so much you can do with a topical. Um, when you look at, I mean, there's different nanotechnologies. There's nanocarriers, where they attach molecules to the cream and the ointment so that it delivers it at an extended release. And those types of creams can be used for psoriasis or even cancers of the skin. And so they're trying to, I think, merge the two industries, like trying to figure out a way to deliver cannabinoids through the skin. I honestly don't think they're quite there yet. I've done a lot of research, and when you talk to these vendors, a lot of them can't even
No,
describe.
they can't. I would ask them questions about it, and because One of the biggest thing is we are really big on whether it's an isolate or it's a full spectrum product. And we really want to make sure that we're giving our clients what they're searching for. So if they're looking for an isolate, we want to make sure that's an isolate or a broad spectrum product. And if they're looking for a full spectrum product, we're giving them truly a full spectrum product and not something that's just labeled as a full spectrum product. So we've had these brands also come in, then especially the Nano CBD brands, and I'm trying to understand this, and they say they get it down into this powdered form, and from what I understand, a lot of isolates are powdered forms. And I'm like, okay, so you're an isolate-based brand, and then they'd say, no, we're a full spectrum, and I couldn't understand of how they were getting a full spectrum from what I've understood is always an oil. It has to be because of those terpenes, those cannabinoids. Everything else is just better when it's an oil base, and even the delivery method is just better when the product is oil and not nano and water soluble. I mean, even
Exactly.
though, yeah, and even though your body is more water, the absorption, it just never made sense to me. And so when they were saying they used purple corn and ultrasonic, I think is another term they were throwing around to extract a full spectrum product. And I just couldn't believe, I just didn't understand. And I just couldn't believe that the product that they're making could really do all those things.
Well, you're probably right.
Yeah. I just couldn't understand that. And I think nano it sounds really cool. I also think another term people use is winterized a lot. And what research I found out is that just means CO2 extraction, just critical. But they're using words such as nano and winterize. And I feel like they're kind of almost tricking the customer, thinking that this is better when it's really not.
And this is a great conversation to have, right? So because it's all marketing, and the layperson really won't look it up. So what's wonderful as a shop owner, and you're sourcing these different cannabis products all over the country, all over the world, that you're reading the back of the label, you're reading their brochure and researching the company, making sure it's tested, making sure they do have a proprietary process that's creating better absorption. Because a lot of these products, when you do test for them, they either don't have CBD in them,
Yeah.
or they're outsourcing their isolates, and it's not really full spectrum or broad spectrum.
Yeah,
So
and
you have
that's
to do your
something
homework.
we noticed majority. We curated very heavily for the brands that we got in when we started this store, and we've obviously onboarded a few and dropped a few as we started. But we have, I'm not kidding you, like a stack of business cards this big from a lot of brands that come in, and we're so grateful that they want to work with us. But a lot of the claims that we notice, they're just not reading what they hold up to with these COAs. And it's really sad when you like a brand too, and all of a sudden you see like they were preaching they were broad spectrum, full spectrum, and you get the COA back, and the only thing that comes up is CBD.
Right.
And there's no other cannabinoids, hardly any terpenes in their product at all.
Right. And a COA is a certificate of
Yeah.
analysis. And it is really a great thing to ask for. And I'm glad we're having this conversation because this morning on my way over here, I was talking to a patient who was asking about CBD shops. And he said, hey, there was a CBD shop down the street. He lives in Westchester that just opened up. There's a smoke shop down the street that sells CBD products. And I frankly said, I don't know those stores. I don't know what products that they carry. I don't, endorse specific products as a physician. I try to remain unbiased, but I do know stores that will do their research, and I referred my patient to Artemis.
Thank you.
Because if you do your research and you have someone, at the shop that you can talk to that can do the research with you and have that conversation, it makes all the difference in an unregulated sort of legal gray market that we have right now. They're selling stuff on Amazon that,
Yeah,
that they're saying is CBD, but it's hemp seed.
Agreed. And what I think is interesting also too is a lot of people coming into the shop are starting to realize that this market's not regulated, excuse me, and that you have to do your due diligence on your products, but also the scrutiny against this industry. And you have a company such as Whole Foods and such, you can't go in there and request the lab reports of those COAs for the products that they have on those shelves. But however, you can do that here in the hemp industry. And I don't think it's fair that people kind of have this stigma around this industry when a lot of their supplement products are not even lab tested to begin with, but they go and purchase those products without a second thought. So
Yes.
I noticed that is a little unfair.
A little bit
but
double standard,
yeah,
right?
double standard,
Yep.
right? And I understand that, but I think people kind of have to eventually see that, hey, there are good brands out there that are doing their research. It's very easy to contact a lot of these brands on their website and even shoot them an email. A lot of them will have even their new batches and their lab reports on their website, which is really great. They'll label their products with their batch numbers on it too, so you can look it up. I think those are really great brands that are doing that also.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're doing the homework for us.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for talking about the Nano CBD. It's something that I've seen popping up a lot. I've seen a lot of people discussing it in the products, and it's frightening to see it because it seems very catchy and very interesting, but I just haven't seen any real benefits of why I would be taking a Nano CBD product so far.
Well, let's keep our eyes and ears open and see what it develops.
All right. Thank you so much again, Farron, for listening, and we'll see you next time on episode 11.